call everyone over. Wise. Oh, that's nice and loud. Simgigat sigidam hanak hankulsit. First of all, I'd just like to thank everyone for showing up tonight, to the community and membership, leadership, decision-making, and informative session on band systems for the upcoming election. Because I'm sure as many of you are aware, we have our election coming up in July 17th. So this session is very much about empowering our village membership to tackle the politics that'll be coming up. So first of all, I'd just like to thank Christy and Jessica for being here. And before I hand it off, I'd like to invite everyone to come up and sit a little closer. You can bring your so'o, you can bring your coffee. But yeah, thank you all. I'll be handing the mic, and this will be the last you hear me. Sabah.
Good evening. Just testing out my mic. I'm doing a mic check, doing a sound check. You guys can hear me? Can you hear me without the mic? You want me to use the mic or not use the mic? You guys are going to stay way back there? Okay. All right. Well, we might as well get started. My name is Christy. Thank you so much to the chief for the introduction. I want to acknowledge the beautiful territory that we're in And we were talking a little bit earlier that you guys get to live this territory, but we're from the desert. We're from Kamloops, where things are brown. And it's really nice to see all the greenery and all the animals, and the snow-capped mountains are really quite striking. And it's just quite a pleasure to be here in this territory. So thank you so much for inviting us up. It's always a little bit of a trail to get here, but we really appreciate it when we get here. So thank you. As the chief said, my name is Christy Stewart. I will be kind of facilitating this session. This is Jessica Coburn. She is a senior paralegal with the firm as well. So before we get going any further, I also wanted to acknowledge that it's Red Dress Day. And I know that that has a huge amount of significance in this area. You know, the Highway of Tears, we were on a big part of it this morning when we were traveling in, and it's never lost on me kind of how unregulated it is up here. It's like you don't have the same access to the RCMP that Vancouver has, for example, and that has created a vulnerable situation, and at least now we have some eyes on it, but it certainly was a very sad scenario for a long time, and it continues to have such an effect on people. So this is the day that we kind of think about that. So thank you so much. I see lots of people were wearing red and wearing red earrings and that kind of thing. So, all right. Before I do any more kind of talking, I just want to let you guys kind of know what this session is about. I think it's a little bit interesting that you guys are about to elect a new chief and council, and the world is also looking to see who the next pope is going to be. So we have some pretty big decisions that are being made. Some decisions are being made locally, some decisions are being made globally, and you guys are the ones that are going to have to decide what that is. You're going to be involved in those decisions. So Blanca emailed us quite a while ago and said we would like some community support, we want some capacity building to talk about decision making, leadership, negotiations, that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to do today, and I hope that you guys find it worthwhile. Just on the small interactions I've had so far, it seems like you're going to tell me if you don't like what I'm talking about, so I trust that you will do that, and we can move on. We can do something else. So the first thing I like to start with, are you able to hit the sign? Is it probably feels a little bit awkward, but we're going to do a couple awkward things, and I hope that you can kind of just lean into being a bit uncomfortable. So for those of you who have a pen, or maybe if you just want to think about it, I want you to make some assumptions about me. In your subconscious, you've already decided a couple things about me. So I just want to put some light on that. So for example, how old do you think I am? Do you think I'm married or divorced? Do I have kids? What kind of car do I drive? What's my education? What's my ethnicity? What's my height? What's my weight? I'll give you one, so you don't have to guess. I'm a lawyer, so you can't defend me. That's why I use me instead of Jessica in this. I'm less sensitive. The game here is to try to get to 10, to see if you can get 10 things right about me. Yes. Nope. I'm not 45. I'm older. 52? I'm definitely not 52. No, not that old. Okay, I'm just going to tell you. I'm 47. I will be 48 next month. You were very close. I have one kid. I adopted him. He's lovely. His name is Edwin. I like him. What is 140? That's what is what? What I weigh? No, a little bit light. Well, it's a little bit heavy. What else? What's my ethnicity? What am I? I'm not married. Well, I had a spousal equivalent. I was telling the group this afternoon, I was like, I was a terrible spouse, so I won't do that again to anybody else. Not a good idea. That's exactly it. It's the advice I give my clients. How are you guys doing so far in your assumptions? I haven't heard anybody's right. Do I have any data? Native. You think I have that I'm part native? Half? From my voice. Interesting. Yes, I am. My dad is full-blooded Secwepemc, and my mom is bright white. American, as a matter of fact. If you guys ever watch that movie, Australia, they refer to me as a creamy, being half and half. I'm a creamy. That was tough for a while. It's not as bad anymore, but when I was growing up, it wasn't a good thing to be Indigenous. And I was one of those kids that kind of walked the line, and it wasn't something that I advertised. I didn't have a good relationship with my dad. I still don't. He has a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff that he's not really willing to work through. And we don't have a good relationship, so it wasn't a good thing for me. And then I also got harassed, basically, when I went to work for my band. I'm a member of Kispiox Secwepemc, and they weren't kind at all. And I appreciate why they weren't kind, but nonetheless, it's like, it wasn't fun to be kind of part of that. So I didn't really talk about it for a long time, and now, as things are kind of coming forward, I'm starting to understand that every story is valid. And there's a lot of kids that were produced about the same time as me when residential school broke. So the residential school closed, everybody kind of went wild there for a little while, and all of my dad's brothers all ended up with white women. Are you guessing? Kamloops, yeah. Been there a long time. I've left a couple times. I would go again. Kamloops has a high rate. I don't know how you guys are up here, but we have a rate of return. So people leave Kamloops and they come back. Very similar to the salmon run. The salmon come back. Any more assumptions? Oh, we got competing car alarms out there. Oh, is that what's happening? Oh, right. I forgot to tell you guys, it was 4-1 for Toronto. We'll try to keep you updated on that. So the purpose, I guess, of assumptions is just to kind of bring to light, it's like you already make judgments about people. You make judgments, and a lot of times they're not right. They're wrong. And it's like, you convince yourself that they are right. And I would just encourage you to kind of run some tests about that. Ask people. You know, do a challenge for yourself. It's like you'll be surprised kind of that, first of all, you'll be surprised how many times you're wrong, but that you'll get better at it over time. But nobody ever gets it 100%. Do we have a caller way back there? BMW to Range Rover? What's happening? Oh, the car that I drive? Oh, no. I drive a Nissan covered in dog hair. No. No. I don't think I'd be able to drive a BMW if I wanted to. I'm not that technological. Can't even say it. All right. What did I study in law? Well, they put you through a basic law program. So you have to do all of it. You have to do constitutional, contracts, real estate, criminal law. Please don't ask me anything about criminal law. I don't remember anything about that. I did a lot of health law, did a little bit of animal law, I did international law. I'm a civil litigator mostly, so I'm one of the ones that goes to court. I fight it out, and I will tell you all the reasons why you should not be in court. So we spend most of our time telling clients not to do that. In this company, though, this Indigenous Mediation Center, we spend most of our time trying to negotiate a settlement so people don't go into court. It's cheaper, and it's faster, and it's better. There's about 350,000 lawsuits that are filed in British Columbia every year, and less than 10% of them actually make it to the court system. So it's not a solution. It's not something that you can rely on to resolve your problems. And even just like interpersonal problems, it's like we have to figure out what we're going to do with each other, how we're going to interact. You guys are getting ready to elect a new chief and council. That's a big deal for a community. That can have some pretty significant changes. You have some big decisions that the community has to make. You got a pipeline that's coming through. If you're like every other band in the province, you also have rental arrears. You don't have enough money for education. You have a housing shortage. It's like it's very difficult for any band to overcome this. So there's some big things that are happening in your community. And that decision making starts with you as the members, and then it translates to the chief and council, and particularly the council, because the chief doesn't get a vote. Have we represented them? Well, first, I don't think I'm allowed to say, but I don't think we have anyway. That I'm Gitsan? Oh, that you guys are Gitsan. I see what you're saying. No, not in a legal capacity. No. No, so you're safe there. No conflict. So the next exercise that I like to take you guys through, and I don't know if you want to go home and check out some different websites, but there's a system of kind of organizing as to what kind of people we are. And it's broad scope categories. Sometimes people really like this. I really like this. Other times it doesn't make any sense to anyone. It's a little system called the color code, and I would guess that a lot of you have been through this kind of before in a different variation. So this one assigns you a dominant color. So you're either red, blue, white, or yellow. Okay? So if you have the opportunity, if you want to do this, I would suggest that you do this when you go home. Reds are very motivated, achieving, powerful. These guys have to be right. They have to be first. It's like reds are loud. They tend to take up all the space in the room. Does anybody know a red in their life? Yeah. Then we have some blues. Blues, they're motivated by relationships, by intimacy. Blues are very, very strong. Blues tend to be the parental kind of figure. They will guilt you into doing things that you don't necessarily want to do. Relationships are very important to blues. The mantra with blues is, if you love them, set them free. If they don't return, hunt them down and kill them. Yeah. They're serious. You don't want to mess with a blue. The white personalities are motivated by peace. They want to be left alone. They just want to work on whatever it is they're working. They're not really into teamwork. You can't really fight with a white because they don't want to fight. They just want to do what they want to do. And then we have yellows. Yellows are motivated by fun. Yellows are the absolute pinnacle of relationship builders. They're the ones that everybody wants to be around. They're the cool kids. They were the cool kids in high school, and they're the cool kids like still at the board meeting. They're never on time. They're not particularly organized. They don't do what you tell them to do. They don't follow the rules. And the yellows irritate the blues the most. So you get a yellow and a blue personality together, it's like you're going to have some conflict. You get a white and a red personality together, the reds are going to be telling whites what to do, and whites don't want to be told what to do. They don't even want to be talked to, as a matter of fact. And that's a hard thing for a red to understand. Okay? What color are you guys? What color would you say? Did you say brown? It's not an option. It's not. What happens if you guys elect a white chief? Do you have a chief that doesn't want to talk? A chief that doesn't want to make decisions necessarily? A chief that doesn't want to communicate? What happens if you have a counselor that's yellow? Super fun guy. What's that? Super fun. Everybody likes him. That's how he got elected. Yeah. It's good. I'll give you guys some examples. The one that I like the most is when you're driving. So what kind of car do you think a red would drive? A red car, probably. Do you say a Tesla? Oh, it could drive a fast Tesla, maybe. It's going to be like a powerful car. It's going to have a statement, this car, right? Might even be like lifted up. If it's driving a truck, probably has those big pipes on the back that make all the loud sounds. It's going to be a red. What kind of car are blues driving? I can't hear you guys. What is it? Yes. Yes, they're driving a safe car. Yeah, because following the rules works for blues. The prudent car, a Volvo, a Subaru, practical car. What about whites? White could, they don't care what they're driving. Yeah, a bike. Yeah, they're not even driving a car, they're driving a bike. Or they're walking. Yeah, doesn't make any difference to them. What about our friends, the yellows? What's that? Yes, motorcycle. What about the yellows? What are they driving? Volkswagen? That's like backfiring and they think it's hilarious?
A convertible? Yeah.
It's probably yellow, probably bright colored. Might be a convertible.
Well, there you go.
You're smoking out the side. Back in the day, they were the ones throwing their empties out the side of the, yeah. These are yellows. What happens when you're on the highway with them? The blues are in the right lane. They're in the lane they're supposed to be in. They're driving the speed limit, right? The whites, they're definitely in the fast lane, driving 20 kilometers below the speed limit, because they don't really think about it. They're just doing what they're doing. And the red, where's the red? Behind the white, so frustrated. He's road raging. Just, trying to bear down on them, trying to honk their horn, get the white out of the way. And where's the yellow? Yellow. Who knows where the yellow is? He's like, missed the exit. Yeah, he's got the tunes turned up, right? It's like he doesn't care. He's so late for his meeting anyway. It doesn't matter. Cruising by. He's the guy that's wearing the toque with a convertible, right? Because it's just funny. It's funny to him. Just like you? You're yellow? Oh. You got a blue car? Doing the speed limit? Nobody passes you? What happens when these guys are the elected council members? Yes. After you pass them and then you have to deal with it again. There's some of these concepts that I'm going to put out here, and it might take like a little while for you guys to think about them. And you might leave tonight and be like, no, it didn't make any sense what Christy said. I don't buy this red, yellow, blue, so I don't like that. And then maybe over time you might start to see some of these patterns. So I would suggest that when you're looking at electing a council, that you start thinking about what color is the council member, who's going to advocate for you the most. Is it going to be a red? Reds have lots of great qualities, they get things done, but they might not always listen. A blue might listen really deeply, might hear you, But are they going to be as aggressive potentially as a red? And you need somebody to be likable. Someone's got to be likable on this. Reds and blues aren't always likable. You're going to need a yellow. You need somebody that can build a relationship. You got to build a relationship fast. If you're going to be working with government, I know that everybody wants to work against government, but you need some of that money. You need the funding. You need somebody that can, like, you know, grease that wheel a little bit, right? And then, of course, please don't discount our whites. The whites are the ones that are writing the contracts. These are the guys you can leave alone in the office and they'll get all the stuff done. So I'm just offering that out there, that there might be some suggestion as to what kind of composition you might put together as your leadership. Because you need a mix of everybody. Make sense? Questions? Good? Okay. The next, and again, it's like you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I can't make you do any of this kind of stuff. But another thing that I kind of came across that I thought was really helpful was trying to figure out what happens to people when they're under stress. Any ideas? Do you fall apart? Do you break into tears? Do you go home and get your gun and start threatening people? What happens when you're under stress? There's 3 parts to your brain. Well, there's more than that, but I'm just going to focus on 3 parts. You have the top part of your brain, which is all logic. This is where the best of your thinking happens, when you're logical. You have the bottom part of your brain that runs your systems. Make sure your heart is beating, your eyes are blinking, you know, you're swallowing, that kind of thing. You don't have a lot of control over that one. And then in the middle, there's this little thing called an amygdala. It's a little bigger than a walnut that's in the middle of your brain. And this is where your emotions are. And if you get upset, this walnut like freaks out and like swells. And when it swells, it blocks your ability to think logically. You can't do it. This is when you see people go into these like rages, when they have these tempers, and it's like they're not behaving rationally. They're not doing the things that they would usually do. Their behavior is irrational. And the only thing to do is kind of settle down. It's time and space. You have to get out of that situation. You have to go for a walk. You have to do something, but you have to find a way to calm down. But the way that this behavior kind of comes forward, there's all sorts of different anxieties, I suppose. So this is where, on the screen right now, these are called saboteurs. So this is like, what happens to you? What sabotages your thinking? And everybody's a little bit different. So this is another test that you could do if you were so inclined to go home and run these tests for yourself. But it's like, do you become an avoider? If you get under stress, if that little walnut swells in you, do you just avoid the situation? Do you just go home and you won't talk about it? Or are you a controller? Do you double down on your controlling? If you think about like the barn is on fire, what is your reaction to that? Do you start to just bark orders, try to control the situation? Do you become a hyperachiever? And by hyperachiever, it's like there's never enough achievement for you. So something happens, we have this like scenario, barn's on fire, it's like, do you need to be recognized as the person that is being the leader? Is that important to you? We go through the whole list: hyper-rational, hyper-vigilant, a pleaser. Do you become reckless? Are you a stickler? Or do you become a victim? Do you start blaming other people? Start saying it's somebody else's fault, and what's happening to you is because they did something. Is any of this sounding familiar? So when that anxiety starts coming up, this is kind of what happens. This is a suggestion of what might happen. So when I did this test a couple years ago, I came out as hyper-rational. And I was like, good, I am hyper-rational. I think that's a good thing. Why is it on the list of anxieties and that it's a bad thing? Any ideas why it might be a bad thing? If I'm in a leadership position and I get under stress and I start becoming extra rational, then I don't have the ability to connect with you on an emotional way. I can't give you any empathy at all. Can't give you any sympathy. I can't give you a hug. I can't make you feel better about this situation at all because I have gone into this mode where it's like I will do the rational thing despite anybody else. And you can't lead a team if your team isn't going to follow you. And when I get into that anxiety, my team won't follow me. So maybe some of you guys, maybe you're an avoider. Maybe when like it comes down to something and you're being pressed for something, you're just like, no thanks. Especially if you already have a white personality and then you're an avoider. Then you're definitely not showing up. No? Do you guys buy this or you think it's garbage? You like it? I thought it was really interesting when I learned about it because I didn't understand anxiety. I needed to know the difference between when you're nervous, when you're just kind of like generally nervous, and then when does it go to anxiety? Because I couldn't figure it out. It's like I've done a lot of like major exams, I've done, you know, public speaking that makes me nervous. It's like, but I wouldn't say that I had anxiety. But I did recognize when I snap into this like rational part. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I get it. Maybe I kind of get what anxiety is. And then I know that when that happens, I also know that my walnut has swollen and I don't have access to my logical brain anymore. So I have to just take a walk. I just have to, you know, take a break. So this is another thing, again, because we're kind of preparing to elect a new council, you want to think about, and it's good questions to ask, you know, the people that are running for council. Hey, what happens to you when you go under stress? Well, nothing happens. I never go under stress. I'm perfectly fine. It's like, well, then you'd be the only one. Do you tend to avoid the situation? Do you ignore it? Do you go a little like crazy with your controlling? Is that what happens? And I think that it's also good for you to recognize that in yourself, because then you'll start seeing it in other people. And then you can say, oh, it looks like we need to take a break. Somebody's getting a little bit heightened. It looks like we should settle down before we have to like make a major decision. If your community is like mine, there's a lot of conflict. I was saying, it's like, it would take a lot for me to come to a meeting like this in my community, because I'm anticipating the conflict, and I don't want to get into the family conflict. That would be hard for me. Yeah. So I'm really glad you guys are here. We were getting worried we weren't going to have anybody. So thank you for being here. Can we go to the next one, Jessica? So that word that I said before, that amygdala, that's what that walnut is. And this is like some things that you can do to kind of calm that walnut down. You can put some light on it. You can name the emotion. You could say, I'm getting upset, I'm getting frustrated. And you would think that that would make you more upset or more frustrated. But when you put a sound to it, it tends to dial it back a bit, tends to bring it down. And you can use that with other people, this labeling. Looks like you're getting upset. And it's like, I think if you guys are like me, it's like if somebody said that to me, I would guess that I would get more upset. Instead, I want to do the opposite. Instead, I want to like prove to them I'm not upset, even if I am upset. No, I'm not upset. And then it has this calming kind of phenomenon, this feature. The 6-second rule is just hold your breath for 6 seconds. Sometimes that trips your system a little bit. You're breathing, change the setting, talk about it, all of that kind of thing. I think that it's in your package. But if it's not, I can share this with Blanca. Oh, there she is back there. Anyway, again, I'm just making some suggestions, making some offerings. Check it out, see how you feel about that. But then I also want you guys to be able to use this with your leadership as well, to ask them how they deal with this stuff. Do you guys have any questions? I don't think anybody's asked me any questions. No? Well, that's good. Part of negotiations, and I have spent a long time, more than 20 years, I think, thinking about negotiations and decision making. The grandfather of the negotiations is Harvard. It was after World War II, after we had had all of those atrocities, after the world kind of collectively came together and said, we cannot continue to fight like this, we are going to die, we're going to kill each other. There has to be a different way to deal with conflict. Harvard came forward, they put together a model, and then it has since been kind of like reworked a few times. But the concept of negotiations, at least the academic part, is helping you get my way. So I'm going to help you get my way. Does that make sense? Sounds manipulative, hey? Yeah. But think about, you guys are preparing for this negotiation with your pipeline. It's like you are dependent on your leadership getting your way. You guys have to decide what that is, but then we have to prepare as to how that's going to happen. This is the model. So first of all, we don't get mad at the people. We leave the people to be people, and we recognize that we collectively have a problem to solve. So separate the person from the problem. We want to be soft on the people and hard on the problem. So if you find yourself being personally attacked by somebody, just put a little bit of light on that and say, hey, I appreciate that there's a lot of like pressure, but just, I'm trying to help here. I'm trying to help everybody. Let's talk about the problem. Let's talk about how we can fix this. One way to try to do this, and I fully understand that this is nearly impossible, is stop blaming people. And that includes yourself. Stop blaming yourself. Oh, I was stupid. Oh, I should have said something better. Stop it. Just do your best to be like, I did the best I could. He did the best he could. She did the best he could. And even if that's not true, it's going to help your mental state to believe that. And it's going to make that person better and make you better. So stop blaming. I think that little bit cost me, I don't know, $10,000 worth of therapy. And I was like, I don't want to stop blaming. I like blaming. It makes me feel better if it's not my fault. I'm content with that. But if you go through all of that, it's like, what happens at the end? What happens when you're done blaming? Well, you might have to solve your problem. So just skip over the blaming, look at the problem, see what we can do there. If you're at this table, if you're even thinking about this problem, it doesn't belong just to you, it belongs to somebody else as well. If you could solve this on your own, I think that you should. But whatever it is, whatever the issue is that we're dealing with, if you can't solve it on your own and you need somebody else, now you have a shared problem. So let them have some of that responsibility as well. Hey, you and I, we got to work together on this. We have to fix this. If we could fix it on our own, we would have. We couldn't. I need your help. I need your help fixing this problem. Time? You want to focus on the interests and not the positions. This is basically the same thing. People have positions, problems have interests. The people have a bias. They have a perspective. They have a way of thinking. You want to get away from those positions. Focus on the issue at hand. Pardon me? It's like, the government doesn't recognize the positions, you mean? The layman terms? Well, this is maybe where I become a bit aggressive and I want to force them to say it in a way that I can understand it. So I just keep asking questions. And if they don't understand it, they probably aren't going to be able to explain it to you. But this is where, to be brave enough to say, I'm sorry, can you reword it? Can you tell me in a way that I can get it? What is the actual issue here? What is happening? Give me a scenario, give me a story, give me something. It's like, and I would just keep going until you do. And we don't want anybody to be left behind. Every prof I ever had said, there's no such thing as a stupid question. And I'm not sure that I believed that, but now that I'm a prof, I think that that's 100% true. It's like there's no such thing as a stupid question because somebody else is thinking the same thing. So don't let them off the hook. Hold them accountable. You explain it in a way until I can understand it, or we're going to keep going. It's a fundamental thing in law, is we live and die by definitions. So it's like we need to define what this is. I'm sure you guys lived through this because this era isn't that, that far in the past. There was a time when we had status Indians and we had non-status Indians. Well, what in the hell is a non-status Indian? Can you be an Indian without status? The court spent years trying to figure this out. And at the end of the day, you could. Yes, you can be an Indian without a status card. Can you be an Indian without land? Is there any reason why we still call it the Indian Act? We're still a legally defined entity. Someone asked me, maybe in the earlier session, what my number is. It's like, I have a number. My band is 688. I'm a 688. And it's like, how weird. How bizarre is that? It's like, nobody else really has a specific identifying number. It's like we were tagged and released back into the wild, right, for tracking. Métis. That decision probably cost $1 million. What is a Métis? Can a Métis exist in BC? I may have just gone on a tangent, sorry. So, back to our little problem, negotiating. You want to use objective criteria. So it's like, how do we know when we have a good deal? And that is completely up to you. How do you know when you have a good deal? I would say, and I can't remember if it's on the next slide, you know you have a good deal if you have a wise agreement, if it's an intelligent agreement, if you thought about it, did you research it? Have we done all of our due diligence? Did we have all the information we needed when we made this agreement? If the answer is yes, then you probably have a wise agreement. I think it is on the next slide, but we'll come back to it. If you are at a negotiation table, it's because that's your best case scenario. If you had a better case scenario, then you should be at your better case scenario. So we have this term, we call it a BATNA, a best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So sometimes your BATNA is court. Sometimes your BATNA is to do nothing, just to walk away. So I'm like, thinking about your pipeline, I don't really want to get into like the intricacies of your negotiation, but there is going to come a time when you're going to have to decide, are we going to allow a pipeline through part of our territory or not? And there's consequences to that. So let's say you're at the negotiation table and they say, okay, we're going to give you $1 million. Well, if you have another offer from somebody that's $2 million, then your best alternative is the other table, because that's 2 million, this one's only 1 million. Your worst alternative to a negotiated agreement is another company that's only offering you $200,000. Well, we don't want to go to that table because that's worse for us. We want to go to the best table. Make sense? So these are, when you're saying about the government trying to trick you, they're going to use terms like this, a BATNA and a WATNA. Well, I hope not. I hope they negotiate with everybody. The final thing that I wanted to say about negotiations is that we don't accept what's on the table. We started out this kind of exercise with assumptions. Don't assume that that's all they have to give. Test it. Find out. Ask them. Is that all you have to give? Is there anything else that is going to be up for negotiations? Okay. This is where we make the pie bigger. So don't assume that the pie is only a certain size. I spent a lot of time up in the north here working with oil and gas. And when you get into these mutual, these like community benefit agreements, it's not just a cash influxation. It's not just a cash injection into your community. Or I would argue, at least, when I was negotiating, that it shouldn't be. How many jobs are we going to get? How much training are we going to get so that we're not just given the low-level jobs, we want the high-level jobs? Well, that's going to take a lot of time. Well, that might take a lot of time and it might take a lot of money, but we want that goal so that our kids are the engineers. Our kids are the petroleum engineers that are doing this. Our kids are the environmental assessment one, and we want them supported financially to go to school to learn how to do that, and then we want them to be guaranteed to have jobs when they come out. Make sense? Yeah? So make the pie as big as you can. I was talking with some of the staff earlier this afternoon, and they were saying that there's a lot of other like social consequences to, in some regards, like the camps. I know that you guys have a lot of like mines around here. So if you get a camp and you have, say, a dry camp, and then these guys are on a 2-week rotation, so on their 2 weeks out, they come and they spend all their time, you know, say at the Smithers bar, and it's like things get rowdy, and there's assaults that happen, there's sexual assaults that happen. These are the unintended consequences of that camp being near your community. So even though it might not be in your territory proper, you have to deal with it still. So to be thinking about that, right? Okay. So this is the slide that I was thinking about earlier. So do you have a wise agreement? Do you have an efficient agreement? If you could get your agreement done faster somewhere else, then I would suggest you go do that. But generally, a negotiated agreement is the most efficient way to get something done. The next one is, it doesn't have to improve your relationship, but it shouldn't make it worse. You shouldn't go into a negotiation just to be, you know, abusive to somebody else or to be mean to somebody else. You should be able to find a way to get an agreement that doesn't damage that relationship further. If you have a great agreement, it might actually improve the relationship. And then not just for the individuals, but also for the community. You want to make sure that your agreement doesn't make your community worse off, that it actually benefits your community. And this is where we get into definitions again. What is the definition of a community? Does that only include 2 families? In my community, it's the Godforsons and the Jewels. So is it only Godforsons and Jewels that get to benefit, or is it everybody? Is it everybody that belongs to here? So you say you don't like the Godforsons? You don't like them? Sure. Do you know the Godforsons? Okay, well then I shouldn't have used that. It was a bad example. Sorry. Shane Godforson. Yeah. 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 He's good. Okay. You guys have heard the term emotional intelligence before? Anybody? Do you think it can be taught, or do you think you're just naturally emotionally intelligent? Think it can be taught? No? Well, let me ask you this question. What's the difference between empathy and sympathy? What's empathy? I'll just give you my idea. Empathy, from my perspective, is being able to see something from someone else's perspective. You don't have to agree with it. Nobody's asking you to agree with it. It's just, do you have the ability to kind of put yourself in their shoes and see what it is? Sympathy is where you see what it is and you feel bad for them. But empathy is just a different perspective. That's all. And emotional intelligence is kind of tied into that. It's like, do you have the ability to see something from someone else's view? Because that's a hard thing to do. And I do think you can teach your kids to do that. And once again, it's like they don't have to agree, but they just have to have the ability, or they would benefit, I guess, from having that ability. Here's what makes it tricky, is that of all the things we learn from each other, only 7%, like right now, you're only absorbing arguably 7% of my words, what I'm actually saying. We spend a lot of time like thinking about that, but really, you're only taking in 7% of this. You guys will leave and you'll forget most of what I said. That's just how it goes. You can write it down. 38% of what information you're getting from me is how I'm saying it, the tone that I'm using. And then all the rest of it is body language. This is why the in-person meetings are so important, because you get all of this information. Your brain is taking in all of this. So if I'm dismissive, I don't have to use the word dismissive. You're going to know that I'm dismissive. If I'm being a big arrogant jerk, you're going to feel that. You're not going to hear it. You're going to feel it from me. And I think that this, too, is emotional intelligence, where we are able to kind of discern what these feelings are and put them into language. Okay? Got another one? The final thing about emotional intelligence that I wanted to talk about tonight is these human needs that we all have. We can't help ourselves. We have a human need to belong, to be heard, and to be safe. And there's a lot of chatter right now about psychological safety, mental safety, so that you feel safe expressing your opinion, even if it disagrees with somebody else's opinion, that there's a safe environment, that it's okay for you to feel that way, and that you're not going to be jumped on or yelled at or criticized for it. It's like, sure, you can disagree with me, but remember, we're going to be soft on the people and hard on the problem. And this stuff is hard. It takes practice to do this. It's difficult. Emotionally intelligent people listen to other people. They gather information from them. They allow other people to be heard. Most of us are going to spend our time waiting to talk. When somebody else is talking, we're not actually listening to them. We're just waiting for our turn. We're formulating in our brains what we're going to say. So when you start doing active listening, it's hard work. It's really hard to stay present and to hear what they're saying. Because remember, your brain's doing a lot of work. Your brain's absorbing the tone, your brain's absorbing like the body language, and you're trying to figure out the actual language that's coming out. It's exhausting. We also have this very real need to belong. So we're back to kind of being soft on the person, hard on the problem. If we're hard on the person, we're telling them they don't belong here. And they're going to resist that, and they should resist that. And I would say that you would resist that too. So when you're thinking about like leadership, it's like try your best to bring people in. To say, I might not agree with you, but it's important that I hear what you say. I might disagree with parts of what you say, and maybe there's going to be parts that's going to change my mind. And I need to hear that too. I benefit from hearing that I'll be a better person because I heard from you what your perspective is. Make sense? Make sense? Okay. Here's some tricks here. I don't know if you guys can see this stuff in green. There's two little things that you can do in order to get more information from people. We already talked about the labeling. If somebody's upset, somebody's like getting a bit inflated, just test it out to see, are you frustrated? No, I'm not frustrated. Okay, you're not frustrated. Let's see, what else could it be? Are you angry about something? I'm absolutely angry. Yes. As a matter of fact, I feel less angry now that you've said it. Going down. The other one is mirroring. And mirroring is I think it's super fun. You guys maybe will try it out. But in order to kind of get information from people, get them to start sharing, it's like instead of just drawing a line in the sand to say, no, I'm not doing something, well, why aren't you doing something? You want to get curious about this. So one way to do it is that you pick one or two words out of their last sentence. So if somebody says, let's think, using my pipeline example, I guess, I'm really upset about this pipeline, I just don't want it to be here. The other person would be like, really? You don't want it to be here? And then wait. And then what happens in their brain is that they have to put these pieces together and they say, well, yes, because I don't want it to be here because, and they start elaborating on it. It's bizarre. And unless they've done a workshop like this, they're not going to realize that you've just asked them for more information and that you're volunteering more information. Okay? So labeling is where you say, you identify the emotion that someone's feeling and they will confirm or deny it. Yes, that's true. No, that's not true. And that's not true, but this is true. But it has the effect of bringing down the temperature. Okay? And then mirroring is just using a couple other words to get them to keep talking, get them to keep saying what's going on. What's going on with you? What do I want out of this negotiation? See? I just mirrored you. It'll be fun. You guys will give you lots of fun things to do. Okay, I want to make sure that we've covered all of our stuff. Does anybody have any questions? What kinds of questions do you guys ask your prospective counselors? Yes. Do you need the microphone? I'm not running for council member, so I can't. Don't ask me.
Oh no, I'm just sitting back there listening to it all. You know, when you heard about the information session here, what I was expecting was to, you know, get some answers on what can we do about the way things are run when there is an election here, not only here, but in a lot of communities, small villages. It's all whose family is biggest, who's got the most friends. That's the way it works. What can you do about that? What can we do about that? As to, you know, choose the good, proper person who's going to get something done and not just be in there for themselves or just go in, get in with a little group and, you know, sometimes they break up into groups. Break up into groups and then they're just, there's that group. There's not one person. So they don't have to speak up all alone. What I'm saying is, what can we do to fix something like that? Because it always happens. It's always been this way. It always has been.
Yes, that is a good question. Thank you. I'm just here to give you guys some offerings about what might work. So I don't know if you have the opportunity to have like a panel, or if you, it doesn't even have to be a public setting, but if somebody's running for council and you run into that person, I would do some of this labeling. And I would say, isn't it true that you're just going to vote for your family? Isn't it true that when rental arrears come up, you're not going to enforce the policy? Put them in a little bit of an accountability measure, right? And then you have to keep going with it. So then when you see them again, you'd be like, hey, I heard that you voted against those arrears, and you told me you weren't going to do that before. Can you explain why you did that? I get that your friends voted you in, but does that mean now that you owe them favors? It's a different kind of tone when you start challenging people that way, especially the elected leaders. But I would just encourage you to just be a bit soft on the people that put their hands up. It's a tough job. You're open to a lot of criticism. I think there's a reason why we don't have a lot of people going into politics. So try to be soft on the people, but hold them accountable. You told me you weren't going to do this, and it looks like you did. What was the process? What happened there? Be curious about it, right? What did you guys think this session was about? Did you think it was the counselors that were going to talk and not a lawyer? The information session? Yeah. She said just a leadership information session. Yeah. And that's hopefully what we got a little bit from here, is just what does leadership look like on the inside? You guys are all going to be leaders in your community. Just the fact that you showed up today at all means to me that I think you're a leader in this community. I think you're going to take this information back to your families. And I hope that you talk about it when you have dinner tomorrow night. Is there a hockey game on tomorrow night? Okay, so when you're watching the hockey game, you start talking about this to say, you know, what do you think about this color code idea? I think we have a lot of reds in there and we're just getting bullied around by the reds. I think we need to find a way to hold the reds accountable. Or maybe we need to start looking at electing some more whites and getting some more work done. Whites are going to get some work done, but they're not going to tell us because they don't want to talk to us. So how do we hold whites accountable? Who's driving the convertibles? Who's driving the trucks? Kind of thing. Any other questions? Did you guys get enough to think about, or do you want me to keep going? No? You're good? I can give you some scenarios if you like. Okay. All right. I feel like it's a long night. I'm not going to put you through that. Oh, we have a question. Go ahead, caller.
My name is Louise Johnson. I'm a band member. When we received the notice, and it says community and membership invitation to leadership decision-making and informative session. Everybody is trying to figure out, okay, what is it that we're going to gather for? What is this all about? Because elections are coming forward. All of a sudden the band is, trying to do something to bring the people together, make it seem good. For the whole 2 years, we pretty much heard nothing. And prior to that. So, it really strikes some, questions for everybody, but they're not willing to ask, but you'll see it posted all over Facebook. And, and that's part of what I'm looking around, and I'm like, okay, all the people that pose questions and, talk about the band and the band operations, where are they? They should be here. And the information that you shared, you know, you're saying, oh, okay, if you're red, you're yellow, you're white, or you're blue, you know, what makes up a good council, what makes up, you know, a chief and whatever. The question was posed earlier, how do we pull away from, you know, nepotism and favoritism when we vote people in? Is this actually based on skills, or is it based on family dynamics? Lately, it's been family dynamics. And because we don't know where we're heading as a community, it's hard for us to make a decision as to who we should nominate and vote for. We don't know where we're sitting financially. We have no idea. And we haven't over how many years? All we know is we're no longer with Gitxsan Government Commission. Okay, so what's our financial plan? They're bringing in contractors such as yourself. Well, what is that costing us? You know, all of a sudden we have all of these goodies being handed out, traditional foods and whatever. Last year, what did we get? Election time, time to distribute all the food. Let's make it look good. They're doing something. That's what I get out of this. I mean, I don't know who votes for who, because we don't, you know, talk and say, oh, well, let's vote this person in or let's vote that person in. That's not how it works. It's a secret ballot. You know, and I'm looking at this other document that you have, job description for elected councillor. I know you haven't gotten there yet, but is that what this meeting comes down to? You know, I think we just need to get to the point and have some real hard discussions here. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a lot to unpack. I can tell you that it wasn't the chief and council that asked me to come here. So as far as I understand, there isn't any program that way. One of the things that was identified is that the community wanted some assistance in how do you understand who is a good leader and how do we know that they're a good leader and what do we do about electing them. So when you were saying we don't talk about this because it's a private ballot, it's like, why aren't you talking about this? How come we're not having more meetings like this, like in your house, to say, listen, look, this is who we would like to put up for council because of this. We've done this criteria, we've asked them about this, they've committed that they're going to do something. How do we hold them accountable now to do that? One of the things that I enjoy about working up here, because I get to learn a little bit more, and what I would anticipate is a frustration and tension with communities like yourselves, is that there's a hereditary system alongside an elected system. And the tension, in my mind, rests with the fact that it is the elected system that will control the funding from the federal government. So it's like, if, you know, as long as you remain an Indian Act band, which as far as I understand you are, then there is contracts that have to be met with the federal government, or if your leadership fails to adhere to those contracts, then you are in danger of going into third-party management, which means Canada will step in and say, you had your chance, we are now going to manage the finances for the benefit of everybody. And I think that there's a lot of resistance to that, because it's been 40 years since that amendment to the Indian Act happened. It was 1985 that said, no, we think that band councils should be allowed to administer to their own membership. But that is not an experiment that has been perfect, and it's not one that always functions with every community. The city of Kamloops, like not even the band, my municipal city, has leadership that is not functioning right now, and the province stepped in and said, we will assist now in this leadership. So I think because of, and I don't know the entire financial situation, but there does seem to be that there has been some significant changes happen in the last little while. This workshop was to kind of bring some capacity to say, what do we do about leadership? How do we gauge the leadership? How are we going to elect these leaders? And if the answer is we're not going to elect them, and we're happy to let the federal government take over, then do that then. It's not forever, it's for a little bit of time. Is that
part of our problem is we have off-reserve people. Off-reserve people voting. And the fact of the matter is, our funding is only based for on-reserve people. But we have off-reserve people that are voting our chief and council in, and then get upset because there's no benefits for them. So, you know, I know this had to do with some case, probably that stemmed from Kamloops, I'm not sure, where on and off reserve people were now allowed to nominate and vote. But it's the whole benefits piece, like, you know, what they can get. Like I said, you know, we're getting like food, you know, distributed to on-reserve houses. And then we have off-reserve people questioning why they're not getting anything. And it kind of makes for a lot of distension, I believe, you know, for the people that are actually sitting in office right now on the administrative level and those that are, you know, present chief and council. And it's been like that for years. Because, you know, you want to help everybody, but your hands are tied. And that's the difficulty of this whole process, is that we have people that don't live here. Their votes are being counted in order to get people into the positions. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating that they don't really have a say after all that. And yet they should. They should be able to get some sort of benefit, you know, for being part of the band, and not just the 100 and something houses that are located here. I don't know what our numbers are in the community for on reserve, but you know, everybody should be counted because they're all counted when it comes to election time. And that seems to be the only time. So, you know, things need to change, and those are one of the things that should be negotiated, you know, through chief and council to ensure that all our members are being taken care of. That's the way I look at it. My opinion.
Thank you for your opinion. I've seen some policy change on this with a governance, like a self-governing election code, basically. And some bands have said, we are going to elect a council member to represent the off-reserve people. And that person is going to have an off-reserve financial portfolio, whatever that looks like. Because, again, the federal government is the one that says this is the funding model. This is what you have to work with. And it creates these inequities. And especially, I would suggest in a remote community like this, it's not possible for all of your band members to be here, have good jobs, have housing, have all of that. So of no fault necessarily of a band member, someone that might want to live in this community, they might not be able to. So it's like, are we going to look after all of our band members? Are we going to create some, you know, housing that's going to encourage people to come back here? Are we going to encourage our community to thrive and to grow? Or are we going to make it so that, you know, there's a social economic difference between living on reserve or off reserve? In my community, for example, the river divides us. So the city of Kamloops is on one side, the reserve is on the other side. Historically, if you lived on reserve, you were more poor than you being on the other side, on the city of Kamloops side. This became like a national matter if you were a foster child, for example. Foster children, foster parents made less money if they were on the reserve than if you were on the other side. So the leadership got together and the band members got together and they said, that's not fair. We want to have the same ability to keep our kids home. Otherwise, you're asking us basically to send them across the river. These are hard. They're hard things to deal with. And it's like, and I think that community events like this are so important, but they start at your kitchen table, and then they kind of make their way here. It's like, how are you going to decide as a community But whatever you decide is going to be better than somebody telling you how it's going to be. And the federal government has done this for 200 years. They have told you what your community is going to do and what's best for it. And you have an opportunity, I would say, every single time you have a chief and council meeting, it's like, those are your advocates. So the question is, how are we going to reconcile our funding? And I think it's a good question.
One of the things I wanted to bring up with all your red, white, and blue is how we're supposed to distinguish who is what color. When the people here in reality cannot promise anything. They can't promise you one thing. All they can do is introduce themselves and tell you what clan they're from. And that's about it. And how long they've lived on reserve and how big their family is. There's really no promises that can be made because, you know, there's hardly any money to begin with. You know, I watched my dad stand up and speak for years, decades. All my old friends are gone. And I wish they were here to see all this happening. I'm sure he'd have something to say.
Thank you. Well, I think that's an interesting point. What if you gave your prospective council members scenarios and asked them if that scenario was true, how they would react? How would they vote? How would they manage that negotiation? How would they manage that discussion? How would they engage with on-reserve members versus off-reserve members? It's also interesting to kind of be introspective as a community to say, how are we going to treat our elders? How are we going to treat our youth? And to stop using like family names. Let's use some different kind of labels. Oh, the rain is coming in. I heard somebody say about the mud. It's like the mud must be an issue here. I see signs all over saying, take your boots off. You know, don't bring your boots, or don't bring your cleats in. I'm sorry, anyway, I might be going off a little bit about that, but I worked in Lac aux Lambs, and they have 36 different ways to describe the rain. And it's like the weather is kind of a character. How can we collectively navigate when this river swells? What happens to emergency management? You know, who are the ones that we need to call? Who's got the equipment? Who's got the trucks? Who's got the sandbags? It's like I think that the more that you can kind of go through those individual problems and then put them on the community as well. Does that make sense? I would insist on having these meetings more regularly. Yes. Am I going to be able to breathe?
Thank you. Tiffany Denny. I am a community member. Part of my work history has been a lot of family advocacy, and a lot of that was on Vancouver Island in Duncan. So while I was there, I took a True Colors training. It was very similar to the colors that you're using. In the training that I took, you're a blend of all four, but one is usually more dominant. And so rather than just trying to like label and feel like pigeonholed, you're actually a blend of all of four of them. And in an ideal world, they would all be balanced so that you could make better decisions.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes. Thank you.
I think Louise's question about off reserve, on reserve, and when we brought that question to INAC, the formula was just on reserve, and the other places that, like if they're in the urban setting, they'd have to go to, I guess Pignata would be one out of Prince George, or another place that can help or provide some of the services. They're the ones that get the funding for the urban people, but it is unfair for the off-reserve, because they really get nothing. But I know Blanca's tried really hard to give them something, $100 or $150 or whatever it is, and you have to find that money somewhere. There's a lot off reserve. There's 1,600 of us. There's 800 on reserve, so that means there's 800 off reserve. And we totally understand that it's not fair when we get hampers here and our family members, our members elsewhere don't get nothing. But your hands are tied, and I know that, you know, Blanca's really tried to accommodate them somehow or some form with something. Maybe it's not as big as what we get, but they get something. And I totally hear what Louise is saying, and it's so unfair. It is, because that's the first thing they see. Oh, must be nice to be on a reserve. Yes, it is, but everybody has a choice, and sometimes that choice isn't Kispiox. There's a better life past Kispiox for some of our members that have a job, that have a place to live, a place to eat. So we do try, we do. And I wish we got a formula that included all 1,600 of us, but we don't. And doesn't mean we don't stop trying. There's got to be a way. Maybe it's self-government, I don't know. But we definitely try, and it is so unfair. I know that they're so grateful for their little $50 or $100 because it's tough. It's really hard to live in a city. Everything's so expensive. Sometimes I have no choice but to live in a city because there's nothing, there's no homes, no jobs. But we always have hope that someday we'll find this money that could help them off reserve, and just keep trying. Maybe we'll find a nice little pot of money that can help them just as much as the help we get on reserve, on the reserve. Because I know the people on reserve are grateful to get a turkey, to get gift certificates. I know I am. So I hear what Louise is saying, and I just say I have hope, and if we keep trying, maybe someday we'll receive.
Thank you so much.
So a suggestion to Chief and Council, maybe you guys should revisit the voting or the nomination Chief and Council and just go with on reserve. Seeing how you guys are going band control, maybe you guys should revisit that and do the elections properly, or not include the off reserve, seeing, you know, because you guys aren't making or really helping anyone out. There's a lot of heartache out there, and you know, something needs to be done right away. So do a better election process.
My name is Robin Moldo. I'm a community member. Just a few observations that I get from this. I appreciate it in a sense that our leadership is here to listen, and I think this process here, especially during your hiring committee, you know, there's people here that there's so many injustices that I feel that are happening within the community, and that's just from the people that you hire and put into these roles that aren't or can't engage, build that relationship with community members. As you can see here, this is a pretty big community, and there's only a handful of us here. And perhaps having a role of a community relations advisor to help engage the community is what I can see. That's the role that I feel within my WILP, and I see the frustrations between the band and we are a hereditary system. I work for my WILP. And then to build relationships with the province and the feds, with all the entities that are on our lahip, our territory. And so now a lot of bands are going on their own, becoming their own entities, self-governed, the health, for instance. You know, so I don't know if somebody is able to sit from the chief and council now that the money flows through them for the health to help advocate for us at FNHA's level, just because I feel like with the Delgama court case and all of the successes we had, we're reverting back to a Health Canada way. That's an observation that I have, because I'm like, the frustrations with travel, and that once again, having this mediation workshop to have with all of your workers, which I'm so happy to see that you did that with the band staff. That should happen with the health staff too, is because if you're having these scenarios right from the get-go, how would you deal with this? You're going to alleviate a lot of that stress from the having an irate or client or a person that is so overwhelmed with health and stress issues coming at your staff and them not knowing how to handle it. I have a health background, and I was doing it for 14 years. You suffer from burnout. You can lose a really good worker fast if you don't have a support network behind you from where you work at. So I thank you guys for coming and doing this, because it really opened my eyes. Like, you can, you can feel when somebody's mean and ugly, and then and you're just gonna disconnect. You're not even gonna listen to a damn word they're gonna say. And they're like, oh, I know how you got in. And you can feel when somebody's genuine and kind and is there for a reason. And I think that's just this is just a process to utilize across the board, chief and council, education, and your staff hiring. Thank you.
Simgigat, Sigdamanak, Gobawilsas, and Kolilbish, why? Rosaline, Amsiwam, why? Sawitni, and Spayach, Kispiox. Some Luam Godi will Baksam, Kosun, Lahib, will Zokum. I just introduced myself in our language that I grew up with my grandmother. I'm just very honored to see our community, some that come together. And it's been like this for a while. It's because I feel that we've been 2 years, 3 years, had really affected a lot of us, especially the children. And we need to just start coming together more. And I heard Lauren, because I lost track. I was on council. I am a council member, so our term is coming up. But in the past, I was on council for 18 years, and I never did know how many people were on reserve. The last time I known was 600 over 600. And then I see now there's 800, and that's a big amount. And off reserve is 800. So 1,600 people. The people that moved off reserve had no other choice. Some of them for education. We've always seen it this way. And to know too, housing. Housing is hard around here. I've witnessed it since I was a little girl, but I never give up on how the feeling. But all I've known was our community are always caring to each other's, helping community, helping each other's. Even though how tough it is, well, I would, and I heard Robin talking about WILP. We have an area where our grandmothers had protected and where they survived off. And it doesn't mean we own it. It's just on the map from up on the road going up. And we have responsibility on that it's just sharing resources, and then we all grew up together. And I know the housing is very poor here, and I do my best. I'm just happy to have a home left for me from my uncle. And I've always was concerned on how people never had homes. Sometimes they slept on the bleachers or found places. And I was always supportive to that because I knew how it felt. And I always believe in going back to an area where it's very peaceful and quiet, like you talked about. Because it's sometimes we get caught into this, and it doesn't mean we are hurting anyone's feelings because we're frustrated, because we've been, and I've seen, it's a very touchy situation now with the band, with funds and like others said, with the finances, and this has been happening for a few years. It's not new. And it does not mean that we know we need the money. It's just that I never really seen anything. Like I hear people talking about handouts to people. And I can't speak for them because they appreciate it. They appreciate whatever they can get, and they'll appreciate the caring, the loving of if we can all meet and meet with our band members, just because they really want to meet with you and to talk to you. It's just because they're not feeling quite well and they just need to talk to somebody because a family member cannot be. And sometimes I've gone through that, and I was very sorry that I said, no, I cannot be this way. I cannot hurt other people's feelings. And you have to catch it because that is not very healthy for ourselves to be that way. And so I've started to walk. That's helped me a lot because things that I care so much for little children in our community, the people that grew up here, that all went for help. A lot of people here reached out for help. And now I know that they have opened, because I went to Choices too. It had nothing to do with anyone, it had to do with me. I went to Choices. And it opened up every wound. It opened up all the wounds, and I had support. I had support. And I realize a lot of people, and it opens wounds, and we have to keep supporting them because it's a danger area, dangerous. And I really love my community, all the people that are here, off community, our families that live so far. I have two sisters. I have to live with two sisters that I've never seen for 50 years. And that's the kind of stuff we have to face in our communities. And we don't blame anyone for that, because we have to correct it ourselves. And I'm realizing that we have to guide our families. They have no one to talk to, and I've realized that myself with my children. I raise them, and I have to know, hey, this is not the right way. And we have beautiful flowers. We call them mazagale that are growing and are watching. And I really like to thank you, Amiya ni Losamul Baksam. I lived in Kamloops, and I always liked to go across the river. My daughter went to university there, and I lived there, and we really loved it there. It was something that we had to get away from just to learn about life on the outsides of the community, the villages. And we came back home because home is always going to be there, and the land and our ancestors' spirits. Just like to thank you, and it even made me think. I have a lot of leadership. I ran rediscovery camps for 22 years. I'm ready to go again to do it. Adults, just to go out of the area and just go sit together like we did 2 years ago. We had drumming. 2 years has been a while not to try to say hello to your friends, but you don't know what's wrong. And the question always is, what did I do? What did we do? We love one another. We're all related. Our grandmothers always sat around and discussed everything before anything would happen. They built their own houses with help. You didn't have to. You go check on them. If your window curtains weren't open, they'll knock on your door and check to see if you're okay, respectfully, but it's so different today. It's safety. And I just like to thank you. I know I went a bit far, but I just like to thank all the elders that are here, that I always see, and the staff that came together today. That needed this. And again, I'd like to thank you both for coming. Yeah.
Samgiget sigedamanak an kubawil sakay demoti algerai lawil meeting tun. I fully agree with what Louise had said and Yolanda about all the band members that are not on the list, when we get our little, packages and stuff on reserve, and they're never, put on the list. Because my whole family doesn't live on reserve here. All of them went away to school, to university, and they all graduated, and they're, one is in Fort St. John, one's in Prince George, and the other two are in Kelowna. That's where they have their jobs. And they should be included in everything that we get on the reserve here. And Tiffany, she has a daughter in Prince George. And I don't think she has ever been included in things that we get here, which is sad, like Lauren said, even just $50, $100 sure helps a lot in a city. Because I lived in the city for a couple of years when I was going to school in Vancouver. And it was hard. Even though you get the money and you have your part-time job, but you still have to struggle to keep going. And that's what my family did, even though they got the money from funding for education, but they still had to hold on to part-time jobs to keep going. And they should, respect that and include them in everything that's happening on the reserve here. Hamia.
Just excuse me. Sim gigatun to Tanakan Wilsha. Had decided them to some earlier Lani. And one thing that I heard was mentioned was about our tradition and stuff like that, and the colors that this young lady was using on the screen there. There's no such thing as colors to us. The way we teach our children is to tell them who their grandfather and grandmother and uncles and aunts and cousins is. Sit them down and talk to them. And you continue doing that to them until they're old enough to understand. Start with them when they're still young. And that way they keep it in mind that they belong somewhere, not anywhere else. Because in our tradition, everything is very, very strict. In the days when we were growing up, there are certain things that we're not allowed to do. And we don't do it because our parents and grandparents, uncles and aunts are there watching us, what we're doing. And that was a good thing that they have done that. I wouldn't be here today if they didn't do that. Because they love us. Right from birth, that's when they started. They never stop. Continue going. Telling us what is right and what is wrong. And it's a thing into our tradition. We will never get out of it. It'll stay with us as long as we all live. And the thing that our people before the allowance, welfare came around, they help each others. If they know one family is short of something, they'll prepare it and bring it to them. Or either ask them to come and help and do what they're doing, what they're making. There's gardening, they do fish, summertime, wintertime they do all kinds of wildlife. They preserve that. And that's what we all live on. We didn't have to go to the store to buy them. While we were young, they raised us up on it. They taught us what to do. There's times we would make mistake while we're on the garden. We'd pull the wrong plant out when we're doing the weeding. But they always come to us and say, okay, I'll show you again what to do. So our mom would come and show us, and our grannies and our aunts would come and show us what to do. And they would do the same thing with us, preserving the fish too, and preserving fruit and everything. They would show us how to do everything. We didn't have to go buy it in the store. We go out in the bush and pick berries, and we preserve it. That's the fun of everything for us to do. We enjoyed it, because we get to have a bit of picnic out in the bush while we're out there. And that was the joy of everything that I remember. And all my brothers were always in sports too. My sisters were all in sports. To keep themselves healthy, that's why they did that. That's the kind of love our parents had, and our grandparents and our aunts and uncles, and our own selves in the family. And there is no other way you can tell it to the kids. Every time I talk about this, and they say, oh, you do that, you did that? And I says, yeah. I tell my grandkids this, and they say, is that what you used to do, Grandma? I says, yeah, that's what I used to do. Remember you used to go down by the river, and my brothers would put a hole in the ice, and we'd pack water. But while we're doing that, we take some water and dump it down the hill and let it freeze, and then we sleigh ride before we finish our chores that we're doing. And Mom would ask us what we're doing, why we're taking so long. And we'd tell her that we're just making a place to sleigh ride after we're done. That was everything that we did, and my brothers would go out in the bush. They'd cut wood with my dad, and they'd go hunting with their oldest brother. And that's really something for young people to hear and to do. There was no complaint about anything that they're short of, because they have it there. Nowadays it's different. They say, oh, it's new generation. No, there's no such thing as new generation as it, even though we do have TV and everything now, is it? It's still the same. It's not going to go away. It's going to be still with us for the rest of our lives. And this is what I want the young people to hear and understand. If you meet one of your cousins or your friend, you say hi to them. You say, how are you doing? And they say, oh, I'm fine, I'm good. And that makes them feel happy when you do that to them. Doesn't matter who it is. That's why that we don't need colors to show that we are so and so. No, it's a no-no. Well, that's just part of my story that I'm telling, but it's nice to bring it out. May God bless you and be with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to say anything before we close the meeting? The food was really good. Food was nice. All right. Blanca, anything else from the back? We're okay? Okay. Well, I just want to thank you all for being here and for sharing time and space and for sharing your thoughts. I really appreciated getting to know you a little bit more. I hope you got a little bit out of the presentation tonight. And I hope you have some really good questions for your leaders and that you're soft on them, because I do believe that they're trying. They're trying, and they need some help. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, pardon me, there's door prizes. You just want me to do the door prizes? Okay, it's a purple ticket. Okay, it's a green ticket. 247-26006. 006. 00, no. Okay. Okay. It's a purple ticket. No, it's still not funny. 247-26015. 6015. Oh, is that you? Nope. Okay. This will be sad. Should I do it again? No. Yeah. It's a purple ticket. 247-26017. Oh, somebody's got to have a ticket. Do we got one back there? Hey, we got one. Oh, that must be the one. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, this is the one. Okay, ready? 247-26026. 6026. Yay. You have to verify the ticket. Can we verify your ticket, please? Okay. How many more we got? 3. 3 more? Yeah. Last 4 digits. We just did this one. Isn't this 6016? 6016. 247-26016. Going once? Nobody? Jessica? No? All right. 247-26012. How did this many people left? Yeah. Oh my God. Was I boring them? Is that why? Okay. 247-26022. Oh, we have a winner. Hey, thank you. It's a purple ticket. I had to do it one more time. 247-26005. This was an early bird. Is that you? 005? Does it say 005? Well, then she won. You're not going to verify the... No. Last one? Okay, last one. 247-26008. 008. Did you win? She doesn't look very excited. That's pretty exciting. Hey? Yay! Look at that. Okay, then we're good. All the door prizes. Okay, looks like there's some dessert left over there, you guys. Very nice to meet you. Hopefully we'll be seeing you again. Drive home safe. Good luck with the hockey team.